We'll call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Bellflower City Council. It's Monday, October 14th, 2024 at 5:30 in the afternoon. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Dutton.
Here.
Councilmember Morse.
Here.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Here.
Councilmember Santinas.
Here.
Mayor Coops.
Here. Anybody have, we're going to go, oh, that's later. Recess to closed session. Call on Ryan to read the closed session items.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council will recess to closed session for 3 items, A, B, and C, as listed on the agenda.
Any recusals or conflicts?
I have a conflict with 3B.
Okay, let the record show that 3B, Councilmember Morris will not be participating. Everybody else is okay with the other items. Okay, let's go into closed session. No public comments because there's nobody in the audience. We'll call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Bellflower City Council. It's Monday, October 14th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Dutton.
Here.
Councilmember Morse.
Here.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Here.
Councilmember Santinas.
Here.
Mayor Coops.
Here. At this time, we will have our invocation provided by Councilmember Wendy Morris, and that'll be followed by Pledge of Allegiance, and that'll be offered by Len Gorecki, the Assistant City Manager and the Director of Public Works. Please stand.
For you, and I ask for a special measure of safety for the members as they serve our country and around the world.
Put your right hand over your heart, address the flag, and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. Start off with council announcements. A video recording of this year's State of the City presentation is now available for public viewing on your city's YouTube channel. The video is also posted on the city's website and is set to air on Spectrum Cable Channel 36 prior to the airing of City Council meetings through November 9. Approximate airing times, days and times are Tuesday at 6 p.m., Thursdays at 10 a.m., and Saturdays at 10 a.m. Mayor Pro Tem Ray Dutton.
Thank you, Mayor. On October 21st, visit the Bellflower Public Works team and CR&R booth at the Bellflower Farmers Market to collect a free kitchen pail, compostable bags, and the time would be from 4 to 6 p.m. Learn how to use your pail and what types of organic material are accepted in the green barrel. The Farmers Market is held at the Town Center Plaza at 16521 Aidenmore Street in Bellflower. If you are unable to attend the Farmers Market, feel free to stop by the Public Works Yard located at 9944 Flora Vista Street here in Bellflower. And from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. For more information, call 562-804-1424, extension 2283. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Dutton. Councilmember Sonny Santinas.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. As a reminder, the city's next special and general election will be held on Tuesday, November 5, 2024, for the election of council members in Districts 1, 2, and 4. All Bellflower voters will also have an opportunity to vote on the city's ballot measure, that is Measure B, along with state and county measures. All registered voters will be mailed a vote-by-mail ballot. The county began mailing vote-by-mail ballots on November 7th, and ballot drop boxes are now open and available for voters to return their ballots. Voters also have 10 consecutive days and election day to vote in person at any participating vote centers in the county. Vote centers to be available beginning Saturday, October 26th, from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. each day during the early voting period, and on Election Day from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. To register to vote or search for voting locations, visit the county's website at www.lavote.net. The county is also hiring election workers and is specifically in need of bilingual workers in the Bellflower area who can speak Chinese and Japanese. If you're interested in applying, contact the county at 1-800-815-26666. For more information about this election, please visit the city's website at www.bellflower.org or contact the city clerk's office. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Santa Ynez. Councilmember Wendy Morse.
Thank you, Mayor. The Bellflower Chamber of Commerce invites businesses, service clubs, and the community to join its next monthly morning mingle, which is scheduled for Tuesday, October 29th from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. For more information, please call the Bellflower Chamber of Commerce at 562-867-1744. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morse. Councilmember Victor Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Bellflower. The City of Bellflower recently approved a new business welcoming program that covers the cost to join the Bellflower Chamber of Commerce. This program provides the first year of membership up to $220 payable to the Chamber of Commerce. To Bellflower brick and mortar businesses that have been operating less than 12 months, own or lease their location, and have a current business license. Services provided by the Chamber of Commerce include grand opening ceremonies, seasonal networking events, business workshops, and more. To apply for a free membership, contact Bellflower Chamber of Commerce at 562-867-1744. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. And I'd like to report there were no reportable actions from our closed session meeting earlier this afternoon. At this time, we're going to give some proclamations, and we've got three of them. We're going to do Red Ribbon Week proclamation, the Breast Cancer Awareness proclamation, and the Filipino American History Month proclamation. So if you'll meet with me over here, colleagues, we will do this presentations. First presentation, to invite the Southeast County Young Marines to the presentation riser to accept the Red Ribbon Week proclamation. Here. City of Bellflower. City of Bellflower proclaims Red Ribbon Week. Communities across America have been plagued by the numerous problems associated with illicit drug and use and those that traffic in them. And there's a hope in winning the war on drugs, and that hope lies in education and drug demand reduction. Coupled with the hard work and determination of organizations such as Southeast County Young Marines and the Young Marines of the Marine Corps League to foster a healthy, drug-free lifestyle. The Red Ribbon Campaign was established by Congress in 1988 to encourage a drug-free lifestyle and involvement in drug prevention and reduction efforts. October 23 through 31 has been designated National Red Ribbon Week, which encourages Americans to wear a red ribbon to show their support for drug-free environment. Therefore, I, Dan Coops, the mayor of the City of Bellflower, do hereby proclaim October 23 through the 31st, 2024 to be Red Ribbon Week, and to urge all citizens to protect our community from the dangers of drugs. Signed by Mayor Dan Coops, Mayor Pro Tem Ray Dutton, Councilmember Wendy Morse, Councilmember Victor Sanchez, Councilmember Sonia Sandia Ness. So this is for you. And now, if you have something you'd like to read, get the picture yet? Nope.
Good evening. I am Young Marine Lance Corporal Matias. I want to thank the City Council members for granting Southeast County Young Marines the opportunity to receive a Red Ribbon Week proclamation. The Young Marines is a national nonprofit youth organization for boys and girls ages 8 to the completion of high school. We teach character building through self-discipline, teamwork, and leadership. The primary focus of the Young Marine program is drug demand reduction, or as we call it, DDR. Red Ribbon Week is a very important time of year for us, not only as a unit, but as a nationwide program. There are approximately 9,000 members around the country that reach out to their communities year-round with the message of a healthy drug-free lifestyle, and these proclamations support our war on drugs. It's an honor to be here. Thank you again for this opportunity and for your support on this very serious issue.
Thank you. Next one. Thank you. All right, next I'd like to invite Nancy Gutzmer from the American Cancer Society, the presentation writer, to accept for the Breast Cancer Awareness Month proclamation. Thank you for coming. Not your first rodeo. You've been here before.
Thank you.
You're always welcome.
Much.
All right, why don't you stand right there? All right. City of Bellflower proclaims Breast Cancer Awareness Month. October 2024 marks 39 years that National Breast Cancer Awareness Month has educated women about early breast cancer detection, diagnosis, and treatment. 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime. The awareness campaign is remember those who have lost their fight against breast cancer, standing with those who remember their loved ones, and to continue to support our nation's advocates. We are renewing our commitments of prevention, detection, and treatment of breast cancer, and the American Cancer Society has searched endlessly for a cure through vital research and has the mammoth task of educating our community and all Americans on the risk of breast cancer. Therefore, I, Dan Coops, the mayor of the city of Bellflower, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2024 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month and ask all Bellflower citizens to join the worthwhile cause to celebrate successes and memorialize lost battles. Signed by Mayor Dan Coops, Mayor Pro Tem Mayor Ray Dutton, Councilmember Wendy Morris, Councilmember Victor Sanchez, and Councilmember Sonny Sandianez. This is for you. And do a picture. Got a few words?
Sure. I would like to invite everyone to our Saturday breast cancer, Making Strides Against Breast Cancer Walk. It is at the Citadel. It starts at 6:30 in the morning, and you're done before noon, so you have the rest of the day. But it is our big day in LA to support our programs, which support the breast cancer research leg of the American Cancer Society. And I would also like to say that, very, very proud, we have 3 new Nobel Prize winning doctors in our portfolio. So we are up to 53 Nobel Prize winning doctors that we support because of our fundraising efforts. So those 3 new ones were just awarded last week. So we're very excited about that. Thank you so much for your city support.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Thank you. Presentation number 3 is the Filipino American History Month proclamation. I'd like to declare October as Filipino American History Month. The Bellflower High School Filipino Club was invited to receive this proclamation, but unfortunately they were unable to make it tonight. However, we'll be sending them this proclamation directly because they wanted to come but couldn't make it. But nevertheless, I'm going to read it. City of Bellflower proclaims National Filipino American History Month. October is National Filipino American History Month, and the Filipino American community is the second largest Asian American group in the United States, with a population estimated at 4 million. Filipinos first reached North America in the 16th century, and the first Filipino settlements on the continent were established in 1763. Did you know this, Sonny? Okay, thank you. Yeah. He learned it last year when he was mayor. All right. We recognize that many contributions Filipinos have made as a partner of the United States, including fighting wars alongside Americans and playing a role in the American labor movement so far. The celebration of Filipino-American Heritage Month provides an opportunity to promote the study of Filipino-American history, culture, and their significant contributions to the areas of art, society, politics, economics, education, technology, religion, and city councils. Right? Okay. And therefore, it's be resolved that Dan Coops, the mayor of the city of Bellflower, do hereby proclaim October 2024 as Filipino-American History Month, signed by Mayor Dan Coops, Mayor Pro Tem Ray Dutton, Councilmember Wendy Morris, Councilmember Victor Sanchez, and of course our favorite Filipino, Councilmember Sonny Ardez. Yes. Public comments, Mr. Smoot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the time set aside for the public to address the city council on matters not listed on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the city council should come to the podium, be recognized by the mayor, and state your name for the record. If you wish to address the city council on an agenda item, you may do so by approaching the podium as we review that particular item, and you'll be given 3 minutes to address the city council.
All right, so now's your opportunity. You can address the city council. John, you want to go first? Good evening, Mr. Briscoe.
I'm John Briscoe, your family man. Es uno de nosotros. I'm part Mexican. Mi tatabuelo is from Baja California. I'm surrounded by immigrants in my family. My mom didn't speak English until she was 4 years old. Both of her parents were immigrants. My dad's side's from Mexico. My son's married to a Chinese national, a green card, Chinese national. I'm surrounded on all sides. And I love immigrants, but we can't have 18 million people flooding in across our border, taking jobs, and especially in what I call the northern tier of the California 42. That's Cudahy, Huntington Park, Bell Gardens, and so on, where the jobs are being taken and the wages are being lowered by people coming in across the border, especially getaways and people who don't even know who are here. So I'm John Briscoe for U.S. Congress, and I'm on your ballot November 5th. I'd appreciate your vote. There it is. Es uno de nosotros. I'm one of you. I'm running, first of all, because the paychecks are too small. We can't afford a 30% inflation rate the last 3.5 years that we've had. The people, $6 a dozen eggs, $6 a gallon gas. It's untenable, and it's hurting all the residents, and not just voters, not just citizens, all the residents in Bellflower, every single one, because nobody got a 30% raise in the last 3 years. I own a small business. I didn't raise my prices at all. So I'm short 30% if you count it back that way. The second reason I'm running is because the crime is too high. Homelessness is the big problem. I know in Bellflower there's no homelessness, but the cities around you all have homelessness as a big problem. And I have two solutions for it. They relate to the substance use problem and they relate to the mental problem. I won't take my precious 3 minutes to describe all the particulars, but no, be aware, state law in California prohibits under the influence, not drunk at 0.8, under the influence on public property, that's streets, alleys, curbs, sidewalks, with a $1,000 fine or 6 months in jail or both, none of which are being enforced. So there's that, and then mentally ill people belong in care. I had a naked lady at my office. I own a business in Long Beach, and with 5 employees, by the way, walking down the street buck naked, and she belongs in a care facility and was not being cared for by the city of Long Beach. The third is the border. We need to close the border up. John Briscoe, U.S. Congress says the border's too open. We can't have 18 million people flooding in without consequence, and the consequences have been dire. So I'm running for U.S. Congress on your ballot in November in Bellflower TV land. Please vote for John Briscoe for U.S. Congress.
Thank you, Mr. Briscoe. Next. Good evening, Larry.
Good evening. Put my name down here just in case somebody doesn't know who I am. I want to take this opportunity to thank the City Council for allowing the Bellflower Noon Lions to be co-host of the car show along with the city. I want to especially thank PJ Milano, who's sitting in the back trying to hide, because through his hard work, he makes this job for the Lions very easy. We've been doing it for about 17 years now. We sold out over 5 weeks before the event. We are more than halfway sold out for next year's event that will occur on October the 4th. So we're doing very, very well. And I just want to take this time to really thank all of you, all the city staff, and everybody that shows up at that car show. We really enjoy it, and I expect to do it for many years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi.
Where's Fred?
He's got a doctor's appointment.
Okay, we can't hardly have a meeting without him here.
I
Or
know.
you, but you're here, and that's good.
I'm here in his place. I'll keep
Okay.
him posted. Hey, I'm going to follow up, first of all, on what Larry said about the car show. It was so much fun again this year. I'm determined next year I'm going to get my car placed so I can display it at the car show. I've been trying for 2 years now. I waited too long. So next year, I'm on it.
Well, get a space. He's already selling them.
I did. Also, I've been walking around my neighborhood the last week or so and admiring all the really fun Halloween decorations people have. There's one house at the dead end on Cloverwood that is to die for. But I was thinking maybe the city, like we do for Christmas decorations, maybe we should think about giving out awards for people who decorate for Halloween, because there's some really, really fun ones out there. It's one of my favorite holidays. So it occurred to me that maybe for next year we could think about that, and because people seem to really enjoy decorating, and people want to know where to go to find the fun places to see. And then thirdly, real quick, I've been seeing a couple of Measure B signs around, and I was wondering if there's a place I can get one for my yard. I'm telling everybody to vote for it, so maybe
You can
I
come
could-
by my shop and we have them
Will
there.
do. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Cheryl. Anybody else?
Good evening, council. Haven't seen you guys in a while. I just wanted to kind of give a progress report on a few items. We are getting CBS and KCAL 9 to come down for our toy drive in December to give coverage. I don't know if you guys saw our coverage for Comedy Fest on TV. We push forward for Bellflower, trying to get a lot of eyeballs on the city. So it's, I want to commend the city also and all the departments for a lot of great progress in the downtown. There's a lot of growth, but with growth comes growing pains. So a couple of items that, I really kind of do my homework before I give an opinion, okay? So I'm in the city till 2 in the morning on the weekends, and we see a lot of stuff. One thing that I think we recommended a while ago is the trash on the Adenmore parking lot. It would be great to have a solar light of some kind to illuminate that area. It's really dark at night, and there's sometimes some people hanging out, and when my staff has to dump trash at 1 in the morning, it's a little dark. So if there's some way we can illuminate straight down where we're not bothering the residents that are living in the apartments, just an idea. Also, the parking on Adenmore. I know it's a recurring issue, and I think public safety is doing a great job. I speak to the guy regularly. I just think that the after hours, from about 8 o'clock to 11:30, it's pretty much mayhem. And I've shared some photos of some stuff. Double parallel parking, 3 lines going on. I just feel like maybe on the weekends have some extra patrol or have an outside service patrol the area. I just feel like it's starting to get a little out of control. And so just concerned citizen. One other note that I think I'm always looking at things to benefit the city. Street Fest. There are some adverse reactions to Street Fest that maybe you guys aren't aware of. I've spoken to some business owners, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Bellflower downtown, it's busy. We know that. Ideally, having off days, bringing people to the city, might look a little bit better, especially with the farmer's market on Monday. My idea is only on Street Fest month, have the farmer's market on the boulevard with Street Fest. You combine now people walking on an off day that probably wouldn't have come out. It's an idea. It's just that Thursdays when the streets shut down every other week, it puts a lot of stress on, not only for us when we have, entertainers coming in late, but when I spoke to some other proprietors, it has been a little adverse of a reaction where people may not be finding parking on a Thursday. Just an idea. I thought I'd throw it out there. I felt like, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays are kind of off days. I think it would make sense to get people to walk the boulevard on a Monday, right? You have farmer's market, just merge it on that. Just an idea, and I just wanted to replay that for you guys. That's all.
Thank you for your suggestions. We'll look into all of them. Good evening.
My name is Tony Veltri, and I live over by Bellflower High School. And I was here a couple months ago complaining about the parking, because we only have one way in, one way out on Hayford Street, and the high school has constant weekend activities, and people are parked all over the place. Calls to the sheriff's department don't do any good. Unless there's an accident, they're not going to come out, and it's a problem. And there's a stop sign one way, and we can't get out, and it's just an accident waiting to happen. And we'd like to put a gate in there, but we also are hearing that there's going to be a McDonald's where that motorcycle place is on the corner of Hayford and the Laundrette. Is that true?
They're considering it.
Well, I could tell you right now, that should never happen, because there's too much traffic already there. So and we're going to be stuck inside that complex without a way out. So, because you can't go out left on Hayford because it's a one-way street. So, I've spoken to the sheriff's department. They were going to come look. Nobody's been there. Nobody's done anything. They haven't painted any curbs. We just need help over there.
All right. Well, thank you for your testimony. Anybody else like to come forward and talk about a non-agenda item?
Hello, my name is Jennifer Gonzalez. I wasn't planning on talking tonight, but something my previous neighbor just said kind of reminded me of something else I was concerned about. I live on Woodruff, District 2, and there's a lot of accidents in the city, something that I've realized pretty often, especially on that corner right there on Woodruff and Alondra. And I know there was a pretty bad accident, I think by the Superior, like on Alondra. And I'm just wondering, is the amount of accidents that happens in this city, is this normal? Is our ratio, I guess, or is our amount of accidents, car accidents, that is car-related incidents, whether it's hit and run or, regular accidents, is that, at a normal rate? Because I don't know if it's just because I live on a busy street, but there are so many accidents. And I also think often of the motorcyclist who was killed last year, I believe, right there on Woodruff and Alondra. And I see his family updating it very often. And I just wonder, is this being addressed? Is this a cause for concern? Because I am concerned. Also because I'm learning how to drive, so I'm kind of scared. I'm oh my God. Yeah, I was just curious if this is something that has been in the talks. Are we figuring stuff out on how to cause less accidents, especially fatal accidents, because it just seems like there's a lot of people dying around me because of cars.
Well, we're no greater or less than we're average in terms of accidents. You're living on a very busy street on Woodruff, one of our busiest, and you see more than most people because of all the activity there. Alondra and Woodruff has been an area that does have a lot of accidents, and it's just because people drive too fast. We haven't really suffered from many of the ones you see on television where they're stealing cars and hit and run, that kind of stuff. That's, other cities are concerned with that. But part of the problem is just you're living on a street that's got a lot of traffic, and they drive very fast. And we do our best to try to mitigate those things and slow them down and keep the speeds down so that it's less likely to have an accident. But it just seems as though when you're near a high school and you're near fast streets like Flower and Woodruff and Alondra, we monitor them. We have different ways of doing that, but it's not always successful. And the summer is worse than the winter, unless it's a rain slick situation. But I appreciate what you're saying, and we'll make sure we do our best to keep it safe.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right.
I think we can do better as a city,
All right.
even if we are the average. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come forward and address the council? All right, moving on. 11A, Mr. Smoot. Oh, I should mention this. I understand 11A and 13A are companion items. Can we consider them together for the sake of discussion, Mr. Smoot?
Ask Mr. Delalonga to take both of these items.
I actually, I need to recuse myself from 11A, 13A, B, and C, so.
All right, let the record show Wendy Morris is exiting the council chambers due to a conflict. Mr. DeLonga, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Smoot. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. Staff has, as you just heard, staff has requested the City Council combine these separate but related items for discussion purposes. This is an effort to cover the bases and provide city options for the acquisition and/or development control of 9903 Flower Street, the former White's Funeral Home site. I'll first go over the subject property, followed by a discussion regarding the loan agreement scenario, which will then be followed by the purchase and sale agreement scenario. The subject property is located at 9903 Flower Street, just west of Civic Center Drive on the north side of Flower Street. The property is 1.11 acre in area and contains about 24,000 square feet of structures. It was recently listed for sale for $3.9 million. The funeral home operations ceased on the site around June of this year. Now we'll take a look at Plan A and B. So Plan A proposes the city loan $3,660,000 to City Ventures to acquire the subject property for a development project. The term of the loan will be 2 years, during which City Ventures will obtain project entitlements for the site. Should City Ventures back out of the project or is unable to obtain project entitlements within the 2-year term, the property will automatically revert to the city plus the accrued interest. The interest rate will be the equivalent to that paid by the State of California Local Agency Investment Fund. Initial discussions with City Ventures indicate that repayment of the principal and accrued interest will be deferred to City Ventures to when City Ventures receives the final certificate of occupancy for a potential project. Plan A regarding 9903 Flower Street meets 3 major objectives for the parties involved. First, the city wants to see a high-quality development on the site. Second, the seller wants a quick close of escrow on the sale of the property to reduce its holding time. Third, City Ventures gets time to design and entitle a quality project with reduced entitlement risk and cost. Should Plan A fall through for whatever reason, staff is also recommending Plan B, which is the direct purchase of the property. After an initial city offer of $3.6 million with a 30-day escrow, the parties negotiated a price of $3.65 million with a 60-day close of escrow. Staff reviewed recent comparable sales in downtown Bellflower which support the negotiated price. Included in the agenda packet is a summary report prepared pursuant to Government Code Section 52201, which describes the key deal points of the agreement and provides an explanation of why the acquisition of the property will assist in the creation of economic opportunity. It is the city's intent to secure the property and sell it to a developer for a project that will contribute to the economic development of the downtown area. Finally, all proceeds from the future sale of the property will be deposited into the city's general fund. Before I go into the specific recommendations for these two agenda items, I'm going to review the purpose for bringing both items to City Council for consideration and approval. Staff is requesting the City Council authorize the city manager to enter into either the loan agreement with City Ventures or the purchase and sale agreement to purchase the property, or authorize the city manager to enter into both the loan agreement and the purchase and sale agreement. Entering into both agreements would provide the city with the flexibility to pivot from Plan A to Plan B without having to return to City Council for consideration. This leads us to the next bullet point. The seller is extremely motivated to sell and sell quickly. This dual plan strategy maintains the quick close of escrow for both plans, meeting the seller's needs. Finally, there is no cost difference between the plan options, with Plan A providing the opportunity to earn interest during the term of the loan. So with that, staff's recommendation for agenda item 11A is to open the public hearing, take testimonial and documentary evidence, including receiving and filing a report required by Government Code Section 52201, and after considering the evidence, adopt resolution number 25-58, amending the fiscal year 2024-25 operating budget to allocate funds for the property purchase and authorizing the city manager to execute a purchase and sale agreement in a form approved by the city attorney, or alternatively, discuss and take another action related to this item. And for agenda item 13A, staff recommends the city council authorize the city manager to amend the fiscal year 2024-25 operating budget to allocate funds for the loan agreement. Authorize the city manager to execute a loan agreement and any associated documents with California Land Investments LLC, City Ventures Holdings LLC, in forms approved by the city attorney, or alternatively discuss and take another action related to this item. This completes my presentation, and staff is available to answer questions.
All right, Mr. DeLonga, I'd like for you to go back a few slides. A little more. All right, there, just want to pass this.
Okay.
That was the first. There's the second. Bottom paragraph, loan repayment will be deferred when City Ventures receives final certificate of occupancy for a potential project. So when the project's all finished, the plants are in, everything's done, then we get our money? Is that how I read that?
With interest.
Yeah, with interest?
Yes.
So there will be no payments throughout the project. It'll be all done at the when we have the certificate of occupancy.
That has been the initial discussions with City Ventures at this point, yes.
And they've agreed to this?
They have.
Okay. And let's go go through the slide again. Next one. Bottom paragraphs, all proceeds from the sale of the property will be deposited into the city's general fund. Don't we have a separate account for land acquisition this money should go into?
Well, we do, but we've spent that money on the previous two acquisitions that we've purchased this year. So this is actually coming out of the unallocated general fund balance and would go back into that balance.
Okay. All right, that's the questions I have at this time. Now we'll see what else we can develop. Mr. Dutton.
I'm good at the time being.
All right. Mr. Sanchez.
You asked that one question regarding where the funding would go back to, but he's right. It's not coming out of that pot of money. So
right.
I'm okay for now. In the efforts to do something bigger, obviously we've made some additional purchases in this area. I think this is the right move to help us with the business growth plan that we have for our city. And I think this is a good opportunity overall. So I think the time is right. So I know it's coming out of a different, out of our general funds and not out of our land acquisition budget, but I think that overall we should be doing this. So.
All right, Mr. Santinez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. DeLonga, for your very succinct presentation. I agree with this recommendation. I think it's the right time, and I think what we're buying here is basically control of the property, and so that we know what's going on within the further development of the property. So that's basically the gist of the purchase. Just a minor clarification here. About 1.174 million will be coming from the cash reserved for property acquisitions.
We had a little bit left.
So the
I guess we had a little bit left for in our cash
So not everything's
acquisition
going to
account.
go back to the general fund. Whatever was used will go back to
To where it came from.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Just for clarification.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. So this is a public hearing.
I'll move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Ray Dutton, supported by Councilmember Sonny Sandinez. Without objection, that'll be the order. So at this point, anybody would like to come forward and make comments on our project here that we're considering? Tell us it's good or bad, or what's your insights that we may not see?
Larry Wehage. The city is under obligation by the state to build a number of residences, and I assume that this is going to be either a mixed use or a complete residential area. Am I correct in
Since
that?
we're looking, but the state requires us 3,766 units in the next 8 years, this will be primarily residential.
Thank you. That was my question.
Anybody else have a question on this? Yes. State your name and you write it down there for us, please.
Yes, my name is James Johnson with City Ventures.
Great.
Good evening.
Glad you're
Mayor
here.
Croops, council members.
Do you agree with our presentation that you saw on the wall there?
I do. Yeah, we're very excited to partner with the city. I just want to say a little bit about City Ventures. This will be our 5th project in the city of Bellflower. We were founded in 2009. We're a leading infill development company in California. We have completed projects in over 90 cities and entitled more than 150 communities. We're the right guys for this project, and I'm excited to work with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Seeing no one else, I guess we'll close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
Second.
All right, with a motion made by Councilmember Victor Sanchez, supported by Councilmember Sonny Sandinez. Without objection, that'll be the order. Any discussion on this? No?
Nope.
Looking for a motion to, which way you'd like to go on this?
I'll just make a comment.
All right.
For all of us up here, I believe working with City Ventures is not the first time for us, and this project's been going fast, and we've had several discussions on it as a body. We know what the developer can do. We know what we want to get done, and I firmly believe that this is a great partnership, because it is a partnership, and we end up getting whole. It's not like we buy something and we sit on it for 2 years. It's like we buy it and it gets done. It seems pretty awesome. Not like the old bank building we bought 4 years ago, I think on Bellflower Boulevard. We're still looking for a project there. But this may, for TV land and the public, this may think that we're just spending a lot of money really fast. But we know what we're doing. We know we've been down this road. We're dealing with people that we've dealt with before, and they have proof in the pudding, so to speak. With that, that's all I got.
All right. Anybody else want to make any comments before we go to the vote?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the comments that I concur with our colleague Mayor Pro Tem Dutton. They have a proven track record. Most importantly here, we're saving a lot of time and we're actually moving things forward. We've got a lot of good momentum going, as mentioned earlier in our public comments as well. I think this is just another piece of that puzzle. And so with that, I'd like to make,
No, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 24-58, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a purchase and sale agreement between the city of Bellflower and the Alderwood Group, Inc., for the purchase of real property located at 9903 Flower Street, APN 7109-013-033, and/or for Plan B. I'm assuming this is how you want me to read it. A resolution and to amend the fiscal year 2024 operating budget and to enter into a loan agreement number 1064 in a form approved by the city attorney with the California Land Investment LLC, City Ventures Holding, for the purchase of real property located at 9903 Flower Street, APN 7103-013-033.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right. So we have a motion by Councilmember Victor Sanchez, supported by Councilmember Sonny Santinez. Please poll the council.
Mayor Pro Tem Dutton,
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez,
Aye.
Councilmember Santinas,
Aye.
Mayor Coops.
Aye. All right. Consideration 13A. Is Wendy out on that too, or should we call her back in?
She was recused
Yes.
from 13A, B, and C.
Okay. Mr. Smoot, 13A.
13A was considered as part of that last item.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we're on 13B.
13B.
And this is a tag team between Brian, I'm sorry, Myra, do you have something? Oh, Myra has.
You gotta read it in the record.
13B and C, if the council is okay, we would like to combine those two items as well, because they are related also. We could present them separately, but they kind of tie in together, so I've asked Jim and Brian to sort of tag team this one, if you don't mind.
Trying to be more
So
efficient.
that's the red in the record then, right?
We are combining
All right,
items
okay.
13B and C.
Okay. Mayor, I got to recuse myself from items 13, B, and C due to a property conflict.
All right. We're getting less and less up here.
Three
You're
Musketeers.
going to be operating on 3 cylinders.
Right.
Kind of lopsided now.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you got, Mr. Smoot?
I'm going to hand this one over to Jim first,
Okay.
and then Brian, I think. Yep.
Yep. So thank you, Mr. Smoot. Good evening, again, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. As previously mentioned, staff is team presenting these two separate but related items at the same time for discussion purposes. First, I'm going to go over the updated North Downtown Bellflower parking analysis, as this sets the stage for Mr. McNerney's presentation and discussion regarding parking rules and regulations in the downtown. As a refresher, the study area encompassed the area south of the railroad right-of-way to Flower Street and covers the area from the county parking structure west to the public parking lots on the west side of Bellflower Boulevard. Also included is the Library Garden parking lot on the south side of Flower Street. The consultant, Thomas J. Wheat Engineering Incorporated, conducted a parking inventory space count, 2 occupancy surveys from Thursday to Sunday just under a month apart, and did a parking turnover study on Bellflower Boulevard during the first occupancy survey. The parking inventory revealed at the time that there were 1,283 parking spaces available in the North Downtown study area. The Civic Center county parking structure contains 293 spaces. The city structure has 278. The public lots contain 525 spaces, and there are 187 on-street parking spaces. With the recent purchase of the former M-Power property at the northwest corner of Bellflower Boulevard and Flower Street, the city added 29 spaces to the inventory, bringing the total to 1,312 public parking spaces. During the occupancy surveys, it was found that the peak occupancy hours are from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Thursday through Saturday, and from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. on Sundays. The consultant also looked at the turnover rate for the on-street parking spaces along Bellflower Boulevard within the study area. There are 45 spaces along Bellflower Boulevard, and the average length of stay ranged from 1.98 hours to 2.23 hours. The number of unique vehicles varied from a low of 86 on Sunday to a high of 218 on Friday. Although the average length of stay was right around the 2-hour mark, the survey revealed that over the course of the 4 days of the survey, 26% to 30% of the vehicles parked along the boulevard stayed longer than the 2-hour time limit there. So that's the report as it was presented back in April, and that brings us to the updates to the analysis. When staff last brought this to the City Council, it was recommended that the consultant review Assembly Bill 2097 as it relates to the North Downtown Parking Study area, and that staff do a CEQA assessment of the analysis. AB 2097 went into effect on January 1st, 2023, and prohibits public agencies from imposing minimum parking requirements for development projects within 1/2 mile of a major transit stop. The proposed light rail station on Bellflower Boulevard is on the Southern California Association of Governments Regional Transit Plan, so it is considered a major transit stop, even though it is not built and operating at this time. As can be seen in the aerial photo, the 1/2 mile radius covers the entire north downtown area and then some. Additionally, the Planning and Building Services Director reviewed the study and determined that the parking analysis is exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines sections 15262 and 15306, and that it does not constitute a project requiring environmental review pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15378 subsection B5. The updated study finds that there is sufficient parking capacity to handle both current and anticipated parking demand, even with AB 2097 in effect. With that said, there are 2 high-demand parking lots in the downtown during the peak hours. The lots on the east side of Bellflower Boulevard between Oak Street and Belmont Street, and the small lot at the corner of Aidenmore Avenue and Belmont Street. The analysis suggests some parking strategies to try to encourage better use of all the available parking, such as the lot on the west side of the boulevard and the city's parking structure. These strategies could include areas for parking meters or paid parking, increased informational and directional signage, consistent enforcement, and time limit range extensions in the peak usage lots to encourage vehicle turnover. It's at this point where staff recommends the City Council receive and file the updated 2022 North Downtown Bellflower parking analysis, and we segue into a related presentation from Brian McNerney, Interim Director of Public Safety, regarding the parking lot regulations and enforcement. So we're going to do a quick musical chairs thing here, and he'll take over the presentation.
Can we ask questions of you, Jim, first about your presentation? Can we do that, Mr. Mayor?
Please do.
Okay. Can you go back to the slide about the, this is very informative, the 20%, 26%, 30% that are parked around 2 hours?
I think it's this
there
one.
There you go, that one. Okay.
Okay.
So how many spaces do we have along the study area? There's 45 spaces.
45 spaces along Bellflower
So 30%
Boulevard.
of that, about a third, so about
15.
12, 13, something like that. So it's not too bad, if you think about it. So they're not overstaying on the boulevard. They're overstaying.
This is the Boulevard Street, on-street parking.
I know.
Yes.
But because the complaints I've been getting that cars are parked longer than 2 hours, so it's not really happening on the boulevard. It's happening on the back parking lot.
More than likely, although
More likely.
they did not study that. They did not do a turnover
okay,
study on the
okay.
parking lots, just the on-street parking.
Yeah, because if you look at this, it's not too bad. 1.98, 2.17, 2.23.
It's
and
right
only
around the
about-
2 hour mark.
Yeah. Okay, that's very interesting. Again, that's very informative. And then on AB 2097, since we don't have the rail line yet, so for the purposes of development, can we require them to provide parking at this time?
I believe you cannot. It went into
Even
effect, and
without-
even without the train station being built, it's still in effect.
Okay, okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, now do your musical chairs, unless you got a question.
Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question, and only because it's in the executive summary part that I'm going to be able to bring this up, because it's nowhere near. You know, I even wrote myself this comment here. The initial assessment that we did on this, this initial study was to determine whether there was any possibilities of doing angled parking, or even the consideration of parklets. Is that, where do we land on that still? Is that a future study that's going to come back?
That can, as directed by council, the study did look at those things and kind of indicated what would be necessary to look at those further if that was something that the council wanted us to do.
All right, so you have the data and you're able to come back and present on that for us at a future date?
We can, if we're directed to do so, yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask that at a future date, for time's sakes here.
And we can do that, but I was under the impression that angle-in parking, nose-in parking, Bellflower Boulevard isn't wide enough to allow for a traffic lane and have the parking going forward.
Well,
That was the bottom line, wasn't it?
it
So
was
we couldn't do
discussed
it.
in the.
It was
traffic study.
discussed, right.
discussed, yeah.
It was,
Okay.
it was,
Study.
it was discussed.
Correct. There was, prior to me being here, I believe Jerry Stock had done a study about the angled parking. And long story short is you lose 2 lanes of traffic in each direction. So at the time, as I understand it, that wasn't something that the council wanted to go forward with. Fast forward 15 years, if the council would like to take a look at that, certainly we can
Right, and
arrange
Mr.
to have
Mayor,
that looked at once again.
Mr. Mayor, and I'm not saying that we are there yet or anything like that. I know that we have the data.
But we can certainly look at it
If we can
again.
at least get the
And
presentation.
I'm up for that, but I just wanted to give you what I remember, that we didn't have the infrastructure to support that unless we change sidewalks and
And it
bulbs
could,
and, you know.
and if I may be entertained, it could even be a part of a conversation as to what the future looks like for the downtown. So it doesn't have to be something that it gets implemented now or anything like that. It's more of a conversation as part of what does the downtown look like in 10, 20, 30 years.
Well, and I guess I'm right away thinking about that potential train station.
Right.
And Len was always worried, and as we all are, about how that's, when the gates come down and you've got 4 lanes, it's gonna be a blocked boulevard. With the 2 lanes, how far would that, you know,
Well,
just, how
right.
would the traffic flow then? I'm just being pragmatic about it, but we can certainly look at it again. We have the data, doesn't cost us anything, we can certainly have a presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Uh-huh. All right, I have no questions, so we can do musical chairs. Stop the music.
All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Now for part 2 of this presentation. What we'll be going over here is going to be a current review of the existing parking lot regulations within the downtown area and the greater downtown area as it is. Also review of current parking enforcement efforts, and also staff recommendations for changes and seeking input from the council to those recommendations. Hopefully we can all see that map pretty well. I'll first note with that map, the numbers for the lots, those are not random. Those came from an existing resolution where each lot was numbered, and those coincide with that resolution, so that's just why they're numbered that way, so don't read too much into that. So what we have is this is going to be a map of our current parking regulations in the downtown area, which coincide with what the parking study was. What we have is various lots, which some are timed, some are not. And as we're looking at this one, the purple lots are all going to be untimed lots. They have no parking restriction. The red lots are going to be ones that have hourly timed restrictions. And some of that will be detailed over there on the right-hand side. So all the lots, with the exception of the current city-owned parking structure and the county-owned parking structure, are posted for no parking Wednesday mornings from midnight to 6 a.m. for lot sweeping. Also, they're posted for no parking beyond 72 hours, which is a California Vehicle Code requirement. If we're looking specifically at lots number 1 and number 2, those are posted currently for 2-hour parking from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. except Sundays. Lot number 3 is currently posted for 2-hour parking 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. except Sundays. Lot number 18, which is way down by the county parking structure, the southern portion of the lot is posted for 2-hour parking, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. And lot number 17, again, the southernmost portion in the red box, that's going to be the existing city-owned parking lot by the post office off of Flower Street. That is currently posted as 2-hour parking from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. except Sundays. Within the greater downtown area, We have other lots and on-street parking which are timed as well, and this is sort of a summary of all of that. The only other lot that we have which is timed off in the immediate downtown areas is the Arkansas Walnut lot, which is currently posted as 2-hour parking from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. except Sundays. And then we have various 2-hour parking, which is on the streets. We have Bellflower Boulevard from Main Street all the way to the 91 freeway. We have Belmont Street between Bellflower Boulevard and Aidenmore Avenue. We have Flower Street between Bellflower Boulevard and Civic Center Drive. We have Oak Street just west of Bellflower Boulevard. And then we have Maple Street, Walnut Street, Arkansas Street, and Park Street, both east and west of Bellflower Boulevard. And lastly, we have Beach Street east of Bellflower Boulevard only. All those areas are posted for 2-hour parking, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., except for Sundays. So the intent here was just to show what we currently have in the entire area. So if we're looking at our current and past enforcement efforts in all those areas, overall, we are mostly, and when I say we, I'm talking about public safety, we're mostly complaint-driven on these areas. More complaints we get, the more enforcement efforts there are. The less complaints we get, the less enforcement efforts there are. When we have done enforcement, and I will go back quickly to a map so we can see it again. If we're looking, when we have done our enforcement in lots number 1 and number 2, which are some of the more heavily impacted lots, our enforcement history is showing that we have a roughly 25% violation rate. And what I mean by that is whenever we go out and chalk cars for the 2-hour parking, for every 4 cars we're chalking, when we come back, basically 1 car remains. And oddly enough, that kind of coincides with the report that we just observed where the Parking State report, which came back and showed about 26 to 30% non-movement or non-turnover of traffic. So those somewhat even though 2 separate data points gathered at different times, both sort of coincide with saying the exact same thing. And I would say that if we're looking at, of the 25% of the vehicles which we do cite, I couldn't really give you a percentage, but the vast majority are not going to be customers. The vast majority are going to be either residents who live in the downtown area or employees or business owners who are frequenting the area on a fairly routine basis. I can say that over the years that I've been here, I very seldomly have ever received a complaint from a customer who came downtown and said, why did I get cited for 2-hour parking? It's all the other options which I just mentioned. There has been, and I will fully admit, there has been a lack of enforcement of these areas over the years. And for the most part, it's been with to a certain degree, inconsistencies with the direction staff has been given. And over the years, our priority lists change and they come and they go. But that's one of the leading causes for a lack of consistent enforcement in those areas. And of the complaints which we do receive, they fall into 1 of 2 categories. We either have a segment of the population who wants full enforcement of all regulations 100% of the time, or we have a segment of the population that wants no enforcement all the time. We very rarely will find individuals who want some sort of middle ground of both. People either want everything or they want nothing. So that's generally what we have seen over the years. So based on everything that we have going on currently with current restrictions, our lack of a consistent enforcement program, we've identified basically 3 issues. One being inconsistent parking regulations. Second being current parking restrictions do not meet the peak parking demand times as detailed in the report. Again, the peak time is basically weekdays and Saturdays from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Our current restrictions don't really cover those time frames. And then also our overall inconsistency of enforcement of those parking regulations. Once we reviewed some of the problems and what we feel that we can do better in and ways that we can improve, we do have the following recommendations which staff is recommending. So if we're looking specifically at the most highly utilized lots, again, which is lot number 1, number 2, and also lot number 3, currently lot number 1 and lot number 2 have the same time restrictions, but lot number 3 does not. So again, to make that consistent with what we have going on with those 3 most utilized lots, what we're proposing is to change lots number 1, number 2, and number 3, change the posted 2-hour parking to be Monday through Saturday from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m., again, except Sundays to be consistent. We are proposing to move the time limit to meet that peak demand time to 10 p.m., but then we're also proposing to eliminate the time restriction in the morning hours. And the removal of the hourly parking in those morning hours will allow for employees, deliveries, repair work can occur without the I don't want to say threat, but without the idea of having to worry about moving your car in those early morning hours and early afternoon hours when there's less of a parking demand. So we need to focus our efforts and focus our restrictions to when the peak times are needed. If we look at a second recommendation, if we look back at lot number 17, again at the very bottom of the screen, we're proposing no changes to the existing city-owned lot, which is already there, which is posted 2-hour parking 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. However, the 2 recently acquired M-Power lots, we're proposing to open those up, and I believe which we've done that already, to open up 29 new parking spaces. And again, to get some more customer turnover, customer parking up front, 5 of the 29 spaces are being proposed to be turned over to 2-hour parking from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. So of the 29 new spaces which we're gaining in that lot acquisition, 24 would have no restriction and 5 would be turned over into 2-hour parking restrictions to meet the existing city lot, which is just south of that. Next, if we look at the parking structure, currently we have no formal rules for the parking structure regarding parking. We have no posted regulations, and it makes enforcement efforts quite difficult there. And we are now starting to see, and have seen for quite some time, that the parking structure, despite being used for parking of vehicles, is becoming a dumping ground for people to place their vehicles in that structure for very prolonged periods of time. And it's also causing issues where people are loitering there in the evenings. We're having a lot of vandalism concerns. I mean, we've now used Southwest Patrol to patrol that parking structure in the evening hours for, I believe, almost 2 years now, partly because of all these issues we're having there. So I think it's long overdue that we get some degree of some parking restrictions in the parking structure. So we're to start this conversation here. We're proposing to have no parking in the structure daily, midnight to 6 a.m. And then lastly, this isn't so much of a parking change, but if it is the desire of the city council to have public safety enforce all of these various regulations on a consistent and proactive basis, it is our recommendation, it is my recommendation that there needs to be the hiring of additional staff. It's my proposal and recommendation that an additional full-time community service officer would be sufficient to meet that need. And one thing is, a question I may be asked is, do we have sufficient staff right now? Our staff right now is sufficient to do enforcement on a very inconsistent basis, which is that's what we're doing now. But if that does not, not the desire of council to have an inconsistent enforcement program, especially in the downtown area, then it is my recommendation that there will need to be an additional staff member hired for that specific purpose. So with that, that'll conclude my presentation, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions, and more importantly, get your feedback on some of these recommendations, some of these proposals being asked.
So the last thing you mentioned, community service officer, that would be a city employee, not a sheriff's deputy or anything like
Correct. Correct.
And, we're concentrating on this. I had a green curb put in front of my store in Alondra several years ago, and I don't think it's ever been patrolled. Would we be able to expand beyond just the core here?
Absolutely we can.
Because there are areas that are not being dealt with. Some of the activities that are going on in Lot 3 have to do with the appliance store on the corner. He's got 4 or 5 trucks that he uses, and they're parked on that lot almost all the time. So would if we were to go with the change, would that then not allow that to occur? Or how would he conduct business?
I do know the appliance store likes to keep vehicles stored in the back parking lot.
More than one.
Yes. The only exemption that we currently have that we exercise to local businesses in the downtown area is we do provide a parking permit for them, for their company vehicles or businesses, or I'm sorry, for vehicles used for their business. The only exception to that is I believe Fantasy Cakes has a couple of employees who come in super early that were given these permits, and the intent of that permit was only to exempt them from the no parking on Wednesdays between midnight and 6 a.m. That is the only intention of that permit. It would not exempt other vehicles or these business vehicles from adhering to posted 2-hour parking requirements.
The owners of these businesses often park near their business. And you mentioned that that is one of those that are always exceeding the 2-hour limits. So if they were not to park there, then what we would be saying is you need to park in the parking structure unless we, of course, amend the times that we can be over there. I'm wondering, where could someone park without getting in trouble for more than 2 hours? Where would we suggest they go?
So right now, if you again look at the map, lots 4, 5, and 6 on the west side of Bellflower Boulevard, all those lots have 0 time restrictions.
All right.
So we actively right now encourage people and their employees to park on that side. And me having actually currently working there, substations on that side, we very rarely or seldomly see those parking lots fill up. I will admit that sometimes in the evening hours, if I'm working late one night, walk out 10 o'clock on a Friday, and they're pretty full. But you come back there at 5 o'clock on a Friday, it's probably about 30% full. So I guess one thing I want to make clear is, and also is backed up from the parking study, we have available parking. It's not that we don't have enough spaces. It's just that we have specific locations and maybe you could say certain businesses that just don't want to walk. And they don't want to cross the street and do that. But I mean, we don't have a parking problem. We have ample spaces. It's just that the spaces they want to park in are rather full.
Have you had input from the business owners, or are they all saying, I want to park right behind my store and leave that alone? Is that
you nailed it right on the head.
Right. All right, that's all the question I have. Mrs. San Ynez, if you conjure any questions up.
Oh, of course. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Brian, for your presentation. And also, Jim. I'm going to go back to Jim first. If I remember correctly, was it last year or 2 years ago that your department embarked on a kind of a robust signage program, directional sign, to kind of lead them to where the parking spaces are available?
We did. That was the signage program with the new blue signs that we put up around the wayfinding signage grant that we received.
Okay, was it successful?
We think it's it's new and it's eye-catching, and it seems to be pretty clear, was done professionally. So it's a matter, I think it was successful, but people have to want to park and walk. And that's part of the problem, is that we even put banners up in the most busy parking lots directing people to the other side of the street in the parking structure for additional free parking. And people have to read it and do it. It comes down to that, wanting to walk 3 minutes across the street to get to your destination rather than parking right behind it. So
I was just going by your the results of your study plus the comment from Mr. McNerney that we don't have a parking space problem. It's a matter of people not using the space that are available because they're accustomed to parking right in front of the establishment. They don't want to walk too far and things like that. Is there anything more we can do to help drivers park in the areas that there's parking available?
one of the things that we've seen in the past and in existing downtowns that have consistently busy evenings is oftentimes you'll see paid parking in certain lots. And so, you would put a paid parking for certain hours within the lot behind Steelcraft, for example. And those people that want to pay that amount of money to park near where they want to go to will pay it. Those that want free parking will go across the street. Right now, there's nothing encouraging someone motivating them to park across the street in the parking structure and utilize those 278 spaces that we have sitting there ready and willing to be parked in. So that's one of those strategies. We've done the signage. We've done flyers. We've even tried that valet program, if you guys will remember,
yeah,
for
I
a
remember
while,
that, yeah.
and that was relatively successful, but not all the businesses were fond of it. We even have John, who spoke earlier from the comedy club, is one of the few business owners out there that asks his employees to park at the city hall parking here at the city hall, and he directs his clientele through his website and his ticket buying to park in the parking structure and the city hall parking lot as well. So it's hard to get everybody on board, but when we can continue to keep trying, get the message out. But we've done the signage, we've done the banners, we've tried the valet. It's one of those weird human nature type of things where people just don't want to walk.
Yeah. And at the same time, as Brian mentioned, there's lack of enforcement. So, all right. So going back to the recommendations here, can you clarify, Brian, lot number 17, what we're trying to do there?
Yes. So again, what's being proposed, if we look at the very bottom of the screen, the red box, that's the existing city-owned parking lot. So no changes being proposed to that lot whatsoever.
So what's the signage say right now on that parking lot?
That one is going to be it's 2-hour parking, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday.
7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Okay.
Correct.
So
And
that
then-
will address the issue of
So ideally,
the
that lot would,
customers at post office.
correct.
Okay.
That ideally that lot would be used for customer traffic because
Okay.
again, the point of 2-hour or point of any type of time parking is to get vehicle turnover
Okay.
rates.
And since we acquired the Empower parking lot, that will add, you said 29 spaces?
29 spaces, which 5 of which we're proposing to be turned into 2-hour parking, again, for additional customer parking.
So we're adding 24 with that same time limit of 6 a.m. to,
No,
I mean,
the-
7 a.m. to 6 p.m.
No, 24 spaces would be untimed.
But there's 2-hour limit though.
No, 2-hour limit is only going to be in the southernmost lot, the existing lot, and then the 2 lots that we recently acquired from Empower. There's 29 spaces total.
Right.
Only 5 of those 29 are going to be converted for 2-hour parking. The rest will be just unlimited parking.
Do we want to do that? I mean,
We don't have to.
I mean, again, there's the inconsistent again. It's basically, to me, it's the same parking lot. It's the same area. Why do we differentiate between the midsection and the north section and the south section? Am I saying correctly? Because you're proposing the 5 spaces on the northern side, northern wall, basically, will be 2-hour limit. And then the southern part, which is the current city parking, will be 2-hour limit. The midsection, which is currently wrought iron fence, will be no man's land.
Correct.
I think that's going to be part of the problem.
And I
Again,
will
inconsistency.
correct, and I will say that specific area has been fairly contentious over the last number of weeks, I would say, and we have had a couple of businesses voice concern that there's nowhere for their employees to park.
Okay.
Again, with the idea that they could park
Contentious
across
in
the
what
street.
way?
In that there's no available parking for their employees.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That was owned by Empower.
Correct.
It wasn't available to the public.
Correct.
What are they complaining about?
The sharks are swarming as we speak.
Oh, okay. I don't understand that part.
Because it's now
they-
available.
Yes.
Because we opened it up without restriction. I think we need to rethink that because I think we're again part of this inconsistency. As I don't know if you make
What would you
agree.
suggest? Do it all 2-hour?
Yeah, because it's the same lot.
I have a good idea.
All right, let's hear.
Anyway, that's what we need to revisit that in terms of implementation. Because again, my final thought on that is the same lot. I think we should be consistent in terms of the way it is going to be parked. Okay, parking structure, I'm all in. I'm the one who reported this. I think I'm one of the person, because what happened was I was walking in the parking structure and I noticed there were 3 vehicles beyond the gate. And
Outside
then
the structure?
Inside the structure late
Okay.
in the evening. So I came back because there was no security. I came back and I happened to talk to the security and she said those were parked right before the gates closed. And the guy was doing it intentionally over so many years because he was selling the vehicles.
Also, we run a car lot out of there.
Yes, and he wants a safe place for his
Sure he
cars,
does,
so
yeah.
he knows the timing when the gate's gonna close. Okay, so, anyway, so I'm all in, and if you were here, Mayor Coops, when we were discussing the parking structure, there was no intention back then to allow overnight parking.
There was never that.
Yeah, never.
No, never.
So we're not changing the way we're gonna be running the parking structure. It was never intended for overnight parking. So I like the idea that it's gonna be closed between midnight and 6. And in the likely event that, let's say, the main event center is utilized prior past midnight, they can always call security, right? They can always make the arrangement.
Yes.
So things like that can happen. And then hiring the additional full-time community service. Don't we have the technology now to kind of control parking? That
Well,
you have the
there's-
space, you do app, you scan a QR code and you pay for the space.
Correct. There's a number of technological ways to control parking. It still would require someone to be out there to verify people are actually
But not as
adhering
much.
to it.
But not as much. It's
To be honest
the
with
way
you,
chalking the tire. I mean, of
correct.
course.
It would make the job of any of my field staff that much easier. Yes.
Okay, I think we need to look into technology. Okay. Okay, that's all I have for now,
All
Mr.
right,
Mayor.
Well, hold that thought. Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, thank you both for your presentation on both aspects of it. I think this is a very good subject that we're having. I think these are great options that you're bringing forth. My first thought at this, though, is a little different here. Because I hear the complaints that we get from the employees or from the businesses, right? And I hear that. But I also hear the need to have available parking for the customers, right? We want the customer turnover. We want them to be able to, they're the ones that should get that prime spot right in front of the business. That's the key. The concern or the problem is the complaints that in my case, the ones that I'm getting, they're from mainly female operated and owned businesses who have concerns walking, safety late in the evening. They tend to be cash operated businesses, right? Salons, nail salons, hair salons, that kind of, those are the ones who I'm getting my complaints from right now. With that said, here's my idea, and hope you can follow me. One of the problems here that I'm seeing is there's just too much different, inconsistent times. It's like a spot zoning kind of a thing here. There's just different hours here, and it's just too much variation. The idea of putting all employees in one section, because that's what I understood, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, Mr. McNerney. On lot 17, what I'm hearing is you're saying that there's no restriction for 24 spots, and those 24 spots technically could be employee parking?
Yeah, so one more time, I'll go over that. So again, lot 17, if we look at the southernmost portion, that's existing city
same.
lot, no changes.
Right.
The lot just north of that was the gated lot. That lot is being proposed
Recently
with
opened.
no parking restrictions.
Okay.
And then there's a little section further north of that against the chain link fence, which 5 of those, I think there's about 12 spaces total against that chain link fence. 5 of those 12 would then become 2-hour parking.
Okay, so my idea, and it might be a little labor intensive, and I don't know how we would work this, but my idea would be that all the businesses on the downtown have to register their number of parking needs. If it's 10 parking spots, if it's 10 employees, whatever that may be, and then in each of these locations, we allocate a percentage of spots for employee parking. So if it's 10% on each lot, that's 10%. So whoever gets there first from the employee side, right, gets to park in those, let's just call it 5 spots per number, at 4, at 5, at 6, at 1, at 3, at 17. Does that make sense? Am I making sense here?
So you're going to have allocated parking on the west side of the boulevard?
On all sides. Every single parking lot.
Oh, okay.
Have 5%, 10% allocated to employees, but they have to have an employee parking permit.
A sticker on their bumper?
Yes, they have to be registered with the city. It's going to be more labor intensive, but I think this is the only way we're going to find a feasible solution. It's a hodgepodge right now, and the inconsistencies that's what I'm trying to resolve in my head right now as I'm looking at this. By doing something like that, at least it creates uniformity. It creates a registry, and I know it's labor intensive. So I know that's your number one concern right now. But, just hear me out, because that gives everyone opportunities to park. If the ladies want to get there early on parking 17, and there's 10 available spots, they get there early and they park there, and you enforce the rest of the parking spots. Make it uniform, same hours across the board. That's my thought.
And it has merit, because what I brought up earlier was about the store owners and their employees. They're probably not going to hoof it all the way to the parking structure.
Right.
And so if they don't, but if you allocate, say, if you have this size, square footage or number of employees, or that there's a restricted amount. But what I have found in recent days, and just been the last week or 10 days that we've opened up the Empire area, the people that are parking there are the post office employees, park in there and stay all day. And they actually, I've been there 8 o'clock in the morning when they come to work, and they're taking the stuff out of their cars against the post office building itself. Those head-in parking spaces, they're all occupied, most of them, by the employees of the post office. And they're all there all day. There is no turnover whatsoever. There's maybe only 2 or 3 spots in that parking lot that are being utilized for the patrons of the parking lot. The rest are all employed. Now, I see a lot of them going through the parking structure over here behind the library, but not enough. Most of them just, wherever the quickest parking space there is, they're the ones that are doing a big impact there.
And in my mind, in that scenario that I'm providing, the furthest parking lot, the parking structure, and the library, those could remain, right, available.
Right.
For employee parking and stuff like that. This just, to me, it makes a lot of the concerns that we hear mute. And at that point, it's like, well, hey, first come, first serve,
No, and I take in consideration
from an
what
employee standpoint.
Is the concern, because I thought that in the grand scheme of things, that I thought that the parking close to downtown will be basically, we've
customer driven?
It should be allocated to customers first.
It would maintain that. It would remain that way. The reality would just be that there would be a small percentage allocated to employee parking.
Okay, so give me an example of why a business owner needs a dedicated parking on the east side. Why would they
On
need
the east
it?
side, well, that's right now where we're getting
Right.
complaints from. And I think we've resolved it with,
So can you give me a reason why they need a preferred parking?
You brought it up, the money that they're bringing out of their stores.
Okay, how many of them?
at least, what was the recent complaint? How many employees do they have, Mr.?
No. How many people handle money on the east side? How many businesses on the east side?
Well, you have
I think
the
the
nail
pawn shop
salon,
does.
the pawn shop, Rocas, Calaveras. You have who else?
Jellos, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's on number.
Trills.
That's number one. So you're going to spread out.
Trills is over on 17.
Okay, so it's spread out between 3, 1, and 17.
Right.
And
So it's not.
Mr. Mayor, you're talking currently, static moment in time.
Right.
You set these kinds of restrictions, you're setting them for an extended period of time. These businesses may change
But
out
the
over time,
boulevard's
may
a moving
change.
target all the time anyway. I mean, we've got businesses come and go. We talk
Practically,
about-
the only, in a practical standpoint, the only way to accomplish something like that would be to establish a restriction and then provide some sort of permit as an exemption to that restriction to a particular business. Because as a business changes, you'd have to be able to change along with it. So unless you're going to change signs every time a business changes, which practically we simply can't do, that'd be the only way to practically address something like that. But it's certainly a policy call from the council if that's something you wanted us to explore.
Yeah, and I think it's something we should explore from that standpoint.
Well, if it's spread out like that, it's not going to be too much. Because I thought initially it's going to be all on 17, 5% of space on 17.
Right, no,
would be
no, no,
dedicated.
no.
I mean, okay.
Yeah, no, the idea would be that there's uniformity, right? So there's a uniformity concept to it.
So-
Instead of trying to force everyone to park in one area or the other, they have to register their employees, get a parking permit, the employer pays for them, they get parking permits, they put them, kind of like our placards, right?
Like
They
permit-
get placards.
or permit parking.
Permit parking, and there's a percentage allotted per lot, kind of a thing.
And then everything else is 2 hour?
Everything else is 2 hours, and it could be, I like the hours that were proposed, which was the evening hours, because that's when it gets the real busy, especially on Thursday,
Correct.
Fridays, and Saturdays and Sundays.
8 to 10.
I tend to walk to the downtown, so I never have a parking problem, but that's just me.
Your truck's too big anyway.
Yeah. But I think that would be a uniform solution.
In all honesty, I think you would wind up with complaints still, because keep in mind, we get complaints both ways. We get complaints from businesses who do have their employees park in the lots that are somewhat further away, and they say, hey, in this example, the post office and some of these other businesses have their employees parking in these time-restricted areas, and you guys aren't enforcing it. My customers can't park there, and they can't get to my business. You also have business owners that say, hey, my employees need a safe place to park, and I need that extended period of time. What Brian's trying to accomplish is allowing, in the prime business hours, allowing the business owners to have some place to park within a reasonable distance. And then in those prime hours, based on the study that Jim's team put together, be able to restrict those time limited to keep the overturn for the customers able to come to those businesses. Because you will get complaints, and we do get complaints on both sides of this equation. And I hear you guys trying to compromise and solve that. We have to keep in mind the practical reality of this too, of how do we enforce this? And if we're going to set standards, I would prefer that we are able to consistently enforce them. And as soon as we start allowing exceptions to those standards, we find ourselves back in the situation that we're in.
And the city manager is correct in the sense that obviously the enforcement part still has to happen. But what I'm trying to accomplish in my comments here is uniformity. So you do have the enforcement still of the remainder of the spots. So for example, if lot 17 has 10 spots, you make two or whatever employee parking permit only. The remainder 8 stay open to the public, and employees cannot park in those spots.
But again, as
They
your
can, but
business,
limited.
They can't. No, employees. Oh, for
employees,
limited.
yeah.
Yes, employees could park there for 2 hours
2
technically.
hours, yeah. But they have to move the car.
But right.
Okay.
I think, this is not I don't know if we've solved that today, but I just don't think that adding more different hours or more exemptions is the right solution. I think it's too hodgepodge, in my opinion. But I am one vote, so.
Would it be wrong to include the merchants in this conversation, or are we just going to have a bigger?
keep in mind, we're not asking you for solid answer tonight.
What are you
Brian's
asking?
bringing you these recommendations for discussion. Any final answer has to come back to you as a resolution that you will adopt to
Right.
allow these times, so we can actually enforce them.
Okay, I thought we had to make something absolute tonight.
So that's kind of why we wanted to be able to have this discussion with you all, because we knew it's a, you know,
It's
there's two
conceptual.
sides
You
to
want
this.
ideas. You want to know where we're at.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
And that's what I'm doing.
Well, the best news we got is that we have enough spaces. I think our parking structure put us over the
Yes.
threshold. If we didn't have that, they'd say, oh, you guys, you don't have anything. We just got to
Yeah.
utilize it.
Yeah. And Mayor, I have one more feedback to give the staff. My philosophy in this is, if we cannot enforce it, take it down.
Right.
Because it creates very confusing statement, message to our residents. If it's there, then let's enforce it. If not, take it out.
But I don't know if we could do that. Then we got to impose staff, an additional body,
Right.
because you don't have the manpower to enforce it all.
On that note, that's a good segue to my third and last question for now, at least. Could we authorize Southwest Patrol to be that agency that does that work for us?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, no, I know it's a question for our city attorney to look into to bring back to us.
Yeah, I don't think Southwest Patrol has the capacity to issue citations. They don't have the ability to do it. We cannot
legal
authorize them.
representation.
Correct. Right.
They are the eyes and the ears,
Yeah, they couldn't actually write the site.
right?
Oh, what city? There was a city that I was at once that gave me a ticket.
You have to go
It was
back
a
to
parking
that.
ticket.
Yeah, one ticket,
But
one
it
city.
wasn't. I don't remember the person being. Anyways, I'll look into it.
So what would you like from us this evening after this great presentation?
Well, I think at least from my end, what you've given me back is very valuable. And as Mr. Smoot said, this is not a formal discussion as far as finalizing anything tonight. I'll take the feedback and then we'll come back to you with something more formal for you to take a look at. So.
And for sake of this conversation, ultimately, what I'd like Brian to be able to do is when we bring that back to you, you guys ultimately adopt something. We want to be, considerate of our businesses in the downtown and our customers. So we intend to offer some sort of grace period, some sort of notification out to them that, hey, the city council has had this discussion. This is what we've come to. These are going to be the changes. This is what's coming. And then once we implement that signage, we'll still offer that grace period before we actually start enforcing things. So everybody is aware of what's happening, what's changing.
And Mr. Mayor, I would add, just for conversation piece, could it be a part-time CSO during the peak hours and peak days, during the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday? Just for consideration.
No, absolutely. And we considered both options. And when we looked at least myself and my staff internally, no knock on our part-time staff, but they're fairly inconsistent as far as their duration of stay here. So we tried to build in that consistency to have the same person doing the same enforcement, and we have much more success with our full-time staff than we do part-time. But not to say we can't utilize part-time for the same thing, we could.
And one more question about the parking structure. Is it feasible to kind of implement your recommendation as soon as possible? Because I don't think we need additional staffing to do that.
Perhaps the answer is we'd still have to bring you a resolution to adopt that official
Right,
regulation.
but that can go first.
I mean, I think we can move all of this pretty quickly, to be honest.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. I don't see this dragging out any longer than necessary.
No.
All right, if we can do it sooner, then that's better.
All right, so have we concluded those B and C?
Do you need a recommendation?
Do you need a recommendation or anything formal, or you got enough?
I'm good on my end. Jim, I don't know if you need
They
to.
just want
Need
feedback from
the
us.
recommendation on mine to receive and
Oh,
file.
receive and file, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the updated 2022 North Downtown Bellflower Parking Analysis.
I'll second that motion.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Victor Sanchez, supported by Councilmember Sonny San Inez. Please poll the council.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Aye.
Councilmember Santinas.
Aye.
Mayor Coops.
Aye. I think at this point we have
Bring our colleagues back.
13D, and we can bring back our colleagues.
Take it out, unfortunately.
All right, let the record show that Councilmember Morris and Mayor Pro Tem Ray Dutton are back in the council chambers. Moving on to 13D, Mr. Smoot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to hand this one off to Elizabeth. She's going to run with it, and if need be, I'll jump in.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. The subject property is located at 9030 Somerset Boulevard. As you are aware, it was formerly a golf course and open space, and the site consists of approximately 22 acres. The city currently owns the property, and there is a lease to Hollywood Sports Park as an outdoor recreation opportunity to residents of the community and the surrounding areas. Just for some background, we currently have a 25-year term lease with Hollywood Sports Park, and there's 3 10-year options to extend by the current tenant. The property is under consideration by Metro for a potential maintenance service facility yard, and it's been listed in the EIR as their preferred location. The City Council initially expressed opposition to the MSF concerns regarding a lack of open space in the community and other issues. And in 2018, resolution number 18-67 was adopted by the City Council, and the City Council expressed that under specific conditions, it would support Metro's acquisition of the property and establishment of an MSF on the site. Then to the right, those are the 6 specific conditions. They're a little bit hard to read, but I believe you're all familiar with them. In terms of the housing need, the state of California has determined that there's a significant regional and statewide need for housing available at all income levels. Our local plans have also identified a significant need to maintain and create more open space in the community. Our RHNA numbers, which is the Regional Housing Needs Allocation or Assessment, requires Bellflower to plan for a minimum of 3,735 housing units by 2029. The state has also mandated a no net loss provision. What that means is essentially if there was a site that could have been potentially developed as housing, and for whatever reason in this planning period it wasn't developed as such, maybe it was developed as commercial instead, then we would need to find other sites to accommodate those housing units. In 2022, the council adopted and the state certified the city's 2021 to 2029 housing element. The housing element also included a planned buffer over and above the RHNA requirements. And then in 2023, there was a survey that was conducted, and 81% of the residents identified a lack of affordable housing as a very or somewhat serious problem facing Bellflower. Given all the background regarding the housing need in the state and in the region, the city intends to rezone this site to allow for residential housing and also for open space. And again, this is to maintain the ability, this is actually to meet the needs of what the community has requested. As mentioned, we were rezoned for alternative uses in the future, such as mixed use, and that would include high-density residential and open space. This addresses the priorities outlined by our residents by allowing development of housing units of different affordable levels. And it would also assist the city in meeting our RHNA requirements. By rezoning the site, it also would secure the city's ability to maintain open space and recreational opportunities in Bellflower. It should be noted that no specific development project is proposed at this time. And really the goal here is that we would conduct a general plan amendment and zone changes to allow for a future housing development in the future. So how do we get there? The appropriate CEQA document that's required for these changes is a project environmental impact report. Earlier this year in April, the City Council authorized the city manager to release the notice of preparation and conduct a scoping meeting, which is the first step in the process of preparing an EIR. The purpose of the NOP and the scoping meeting is to seek public comments on what should be addressed in the scope of the EIR. Between April 26, 2024 to July 25th, 2024, a 90-day public comment period for the NOP was held. At the end of the comment period, the city received 6 letters from various agencies. We also held a meeting on July 10th, 2024, and nobody from the public attended this meeting. Following the completion of the NOP and the scoping meeting, DUDEC, which is our consultant that's preparing the EIR, or that prepared the NOP, they prepared an updated scope and a budget, which is estimated at $320,000 to complete the EIR. Task order number 7 was prepared since the estimated cost to complete the EIR exceeds the amount allowed under the existing agreement. Therefore, City Council approval is required to execute this task order based on the total amount and the scope of work. And then also following the NOP, staff determined that there are several changes that need to be done to the zoning and the general plan in order to rezone the property. The first relates to the zone change. The current zoning is open space, and that would be changed to specific plan. The specific plan would have different development scenarios, and it would describe the maximum potential of residential on the site. It would also include illustrative designs on how the site can be laid out, as well as development standards for this specific development, or excuse me, for a development in the future. As it relates to the general plan amendments, there are several amendments that need to be done. The first is the land use element. We would revise the land use plan to change the designation from open space to mixed use. The housing element would also need to be amended for consistency purposes. And then lastly, an environmental justice element would be required. By law, since two elements of the general plan would be amended concurrently, a new environmental justice element is required. De novo planning group will prepare the specific plan, the amendments to the housing element, and will create a new environmental justice element at an estimated cost of $390,000. Agreement number 805 was prepared. And just for more history regarding de novo planning group, we have used them before for consulting services. Most recently, they assisted the city in developing our sign ordinance. Tonight's recommendations include to authorize the city manager to execute task order number 7 with DUDEC for preparation and completion of the EIR, and authorize the city manager to execute agreement file number 805.1 in a form approved by the city attorney with de novo planning group for preparation of a specific plan, housing element amendment, and environmental justice element, and approve a budget amendment to allocate $710,000 for contract services in account number 542-42054-4132, or alternatively discuss and take other action related to this item. And I do want to point out that there is supplemental material that the council received a copy of. Essentially, the order of the original staff report needed some revisions, and there were some clerical errors that were also caught. And so those changes have been made to the supplemental material. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the great report. And Wendy, we'll start with you. Have any questions on the report? All right, Mr. Dutton?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. The PowerPoint says task 7 and the agenda says task 6.
That's correct. So that was one of the revisions that were made with the supplemental material. Okay. The correct task order is number 7.
Number 7, okay. So when read into the record, if it goes that far, we need to say 7. Okay. The other thing, new, I know what an EIR is. What's an environmental justice element? I have never heard that before up here, as long as I have.
Councilmember Duncan.
I can only imagine the way my mind thinks.
That is a good question. It's one of the newer elements of a general plan. And more recently, it was mandated if a city were to undergo 2 amendments to a general plan element at the same time, then a new environmental justice element would be required. And essentially what it is it evaluates environmental hazards, pollution, air quality, access to healthy foods. It reviews all of that and the impacts to the residents, and especially residents in what's, put on quotes, disadvantaged communities. And so essentially the element includes goals and policies to try to minimize those pollutants and its effect on neighborhoods. So that's...
So everything the EIR doesn't cover, this covers the rest of the world's problems.
The EIR is site-specific.
So the EIR is more of a planning document. The general plan is actually our city-specific document that the council is adopting. It'd be a set of policies that the council is adopting in that regard.
Great question.
I'm not going to ask any more about it. I'm sure I'm going to learn.
Is that all your questions?
Yeah, for now, yeah.
All right. Mr. San Ynez, any questions?
Mayor, Elizabeth, thank you so much for the presentation. Just timing-wise, what's the time frame for this EIR and the environmental justice study?
So the EIR is probably what's going to take the longest. There's a bunch of special studies that are required as part of the EIR, and it's estimated at about 18 months to complete.
18 months, okay.
And then in terms of the specific plan and the zone change and general plan amendments, that's on a much shorter time frame. It's about 8 months to complete.
And those are done concurrently?
It would be concurrently because essentially they go together.
Okay. And then I know that in the EIR there is input from the public.
Correct.
Okay. How much involvement will the public have in
good
terms
amount.
of EIR and also the specific plan?
Yeah, during the EIR process, there's quite a bit of community engagement. The first step was the notice of preparation process. And that was made available to the public for 90 days. We welcomed any public comment. It was also sent to stakeholders. That's initially the first step in providing comments to the EIR. After that, there is a public review period, and there's usually some community engagement that's involved, whether it's through social media or through community meetings. Those are typical of an EIR.
Okay. Okay. And how many of those community meetings are we planning on doing?
Let me see if it's been outlined. Councilmember Santinez, I'll probably have to get back to you on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just want to make sure that we kind of noticed that in our website to make sure that people are involved.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. All right. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My first question here is, I know you said we've used them before. Did we bid this out at all?
We did not. It's a professional services agreement, so it's not required to be sent out to bid. We did actually reach out to at least a handful of planning consultants, and we know that De Novo has done some of this work in the past. So in reviewing their proposal, we thought they were best suited for the job to create the specific plan and to help us with the general plan amendments.
And in your knowledge, do you believe that we're within the price range we should be for this?
Yes.
Average, below average, above average?
Probably average. EIRs are quite expensive. Total, it's about $400,000, which is pretty typical. And then in terms of the general plan amendment and the environmental justice element, those all range, but typically an environmental justice element is more than 6 figures. So it does add up. If you count the environmental justice element, the housing element amendments, and then all the other amendments in the specific plan, sorry.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Although I felt the same way. That was about, I had an idea of what I thought it might cost, and this was 2x.
And then if I can also point out, in terms of the payment, we do collect, as part of building permit fees, there's a percentage that gets collected for any general plan amendments and zoning code updates. So we do already have the funding for it as well, and it's coming out of that pool that we collect for every building permit.
And Mr. Mayor, if I might, just to be clear on one thing as well, what we're talking about here is a little bit in the ether. We're talking about the future of Bellflower. I mean, you have a 22-acre site in the middle of a built-out community in the middle of LA County, which is essentially built out. what you're asking is, what does the future of that site look like? At the same time, we also have an existing tenant on that site, and I think you all have been pretty clear about wanting to protect that tenant and make sure that they're taken care of as well. I expect that well, you've all given me the authority to express to that tenant when they ask for their extension on their lease that we intend to go forward with that. So I want to be clear with the community that we are continuing to protect that tenant, and regardless of what happens with this or with Metro, we still intend to do that. So I have had that conversation with the tenants there existing, and I would expect that we'll continue to keep them in the loop as well.
Mr. Mayor, actually, a couple of follow-up questions that were triggered, if I may.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just to understand here, by the time that De Novo Planning Group brings this item back, they're going to bring it back with a bow and a tie, I mean, fully wrapped for you to bring to us for either approval and movement forward, or will there still be more additional work on your end?
No, that's the goal, is once we complete everything to bring it back at the same time.
Okay, and what's the timeline?
Right now, it's 18 months for the EIR. The specific plan and the general plan amendments are less time, but since they go together, we'll probably, well, we won't probably, but we'll bring it back together, so about 18 months.
All right, very good, thank you.
They don't want to do it too fast, otherwise they don't earn the money.
I think they earn the money either way.
Mr. Smoot, you brought up the lease. Has that been exercised yet? As well as in October, the month to do that?
Well, technically, the earliest that the tenants can officially request the exercise, the option that exists in their lease is, later this month. They have expressed to us that they desire to do that.
All right,
and
so
we
we're
do
on
have
track
that.
to accomplish that.
Yeah.
All right, this time I'd offer the chance to anybody in the audience want to give testimony on this item. I'm certainly going to welcome that. I think we wore everybody out tonight already, so. Consideration item, even though it's not a public hearing, I suppose we need to vote on it. Somebody want to make a motion to approve or not?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for the City Council of Bellflower to authorize the city manager to execute task number 7 with DUDEC for preparation of an EIR. Second, authorize city manager to execute agreement file number 805.1 in the form approved by the city attorney with the Novo Planning Group for preparation of a specific plan, housing element amendment, and environmental justice element. And number 3, approve a budget amendment to allocate $710,000 for the contract services in account number 542-42054-4132.
I'll second the motion. So we have a motion by Councilmember Sonny Sandy Inez, supported by Mayor Dan Coops. Please poll the council.
Mayor Pro Tem Dutton?
Aye.
Councilmember Morse?
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Aye.
Councilmember Santinas?
Aye.
Mayor Coops?
Aye. Moving on to 14, the consent calendar. Any recusals or conflicts? Does anyone have any conflict that they want to consider? Or they want to pull an item? But let's first do the conflicts. I have one. I'll be out on item M like Mary, because I have a property in the proximity of the park. Anybody else want to bring forward their conflicts, if there are any? All right.
Nope.
None, so we're going to move on. Anybody want to pull something for separate discussion or consideration?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item M and N. M for
M for Mary, N for
Mary,
Nancy?
and N for Nancy.
Okay. Would you like to bring PJ forward on that, or how do you want to talk to it?
For M, I believe this would probably be a question for our Public Works Director, Mr. Glenn Gorecki.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, just if you could kind of summarize this for us and then kind of provide a new timeline. What does this do to the timeline?
Councilmember Sanchez, before you continue, Mr. Coops, I believe you're recused
Oh,
on
you're
item
recused.
M.
So I'll get out of the room.
That would be.
I apologize, Mr. Mayor.
No, let the record show that the mayor has recused himself and left the room. Go ahead, Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you,
Glenn.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, Honorable Vice Mayor and council members, just a quick summary. This action is to reject all the bids that we received for the Bellflower Youth and Senior Center project. As it's noted in the staff report, we received a total of 12 bids. The third lowest bidder immediately issued a protest to the bids issued by the first and second lowest bidders. First and second lowest bidders issued a series of rebuttal letters to that. All of that documentation was turned over to the city council, or to the city attorney, and they reviewed it and examined it, and they came back with this recommendation. Essentially, what happens is there's some technicalities on some of the parts of subcontractors, who was listed, who was not listed. There was a specific product that was listed in the plan set. And a lot of times when you're doing builds like this, you can say that, yeah, we'd like product A or equivalent. This particular item didn't have the word or equivalent in it, and it required a very specific bid from a sole source contractor, the only one that could provide that. So the original protest came in because the first and second lowest bidders did not do that. In review of the documents, there were also mistakes that the third lowest, the original protester, made in their bid as well. So it just was a hodgepodge of mistakes by everybody, and kind of in the safest path forward for the city to not get tangled up into a bidding lawsuit is to reject all bids and put it out. The second part to your question, what's the timeline look like? So currently, I'm working with the construction management firm. They're reviewing the package as a third set of eyes for us right now, going through it, making their comments. The architect will be meeting with myself as well as the third-party consultant on Thursday. We're going to all put our heads together. Now, the architect has already had their different design divisions, mechanical, plumbing, electrical. They already have them started on going through and checking all the terminology. So we're basically just going to try to tighten this up, and you can never make it bulletproof, but we're going to make it more bulletproof than it is right now. I don't know that timeline. I'm assuming it's probably going to take us a few more weeks to get this done before we have it packaged and ready to go back out to bid. When we go back out to bid, we're going to notice everybody that bid it the first time around. The 12 that we received, we'll notice them. We have to notice it out to the rest of the public again. So depending on what kind of responses we get, whether we have to hold any mandatory job walk meetings or anything, that kind of all factors into the timeline of the bid itself. But ideally, I'd want it to advertise for probably close to 4 weeks for any of the firms out there. It was a great package the first time. I mean, the fact that we got 12 bids in on it was awesome. And the fact that our 5 lowest bids were all within $500,000 of each other in total was a very good package. There was just, someone found a defect and, submitted the.
So just to hone in on the real question, the timeline question, is that 3 months, 4 months delay? What do you think?
If I can get a package put together and it advertises in the month of November, I don't think I can have something back to the council for approval, probably until, the safest would be January. If I can get it done quicker, I might be able to bring it back to one of the meetings in December. But that's, it kind of depends on how my meeting goes on Thursday, how many things have been found, and what we need to do to correct this and how quick we can correct it. I'll have a better idea on Thursday, and it'll be in the weekly on Friday.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. That concludes my questions on item M.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Of course.
On Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, on the Oak Center?
Yes, go right ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking that, this project is, in my estimation, we are at least one year behind. At least 1 year behind. because, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we already hired a supervisor who's supposed to start planning for this, and we still have not broken grounds yet. And that was in the budget. I remember that. It's going to start 18 months prior to the opening of the Oak Center. But having said that, I myself have been promoting this project to a lot of our residents. And when we mentioned this last year, I mean, they were just excited to have a youth and senior center in the city of Bellflower. And Mayor Pro Tem and myself were part of the subcommittee. We went to all the planning, all the development plans for this project, and we're very excited. So I would really encourage staff to please do your best to make sure that we can make up some time if possible, because there's a lot of people are waiting for this project.
It's been 2 years already.
Yeah.
Of the planning on it.
I would
Alright.
point out if we can get that stuff done in a timely fashion, we can always schedule a special meeting in December if we had to, if it gets close to that window, if that's something
Yeah, I
the
was going to
council wanted
recommend
to do.
that. You all in for a special meeting if you have to?
Well, we have a second meeting in December
Yeah.
for cannabis.
Or a special meeting.
Or
Yeah,
a special
any
meeting,
or-
whatever it takes.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, get Dan, yeah. We'll just it was just discussion. We didn't yank anything.
All right, so you got M and N taken care of? M, now we're going to do N.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe this is for our Public Safety Interim Director. First off, thank you for bringing this to us to put some eyes on it. The question I have really is related to, and I can't find the section here, but bulky items. I read bulky items in the back page, right? Okay, I thought I was losing it. I was like,
It's, yes, that's, if you look at Exhibit A, it's under Title 13.
okay, great. So my thought on this, and I'm glad that we're imposing, or that we're gonna have this on, but one, thought it would be increase the amount, and then two, signage on our hotspots would be ideal, and this may be a comment for Mr. Gorecki, but, you know, I see throughout other parts of our communities, not in Bellflower particularly, I see the, you know, no dumping grounds, right, or fines up, you know. So I'd like to see something like that if we could, especially on our hotspots, just to make it more visible and inform. And then, are we on the unlawful street racing? I think we've done a tremendous job, and I would compliment your department on this. I think it's been down. I mean, we haven't heard a lot of issues with that, but nonetheless, is 500 the max that we could do for that?
Well, no, it's, this resolution, this exhibit is proposing no changes to that specific section. That was pre-existing,
Right.
but if you're looking to have that changed, quite possibly.
Right, I would. I mean, that's why I think our city attorney at one point educated us that there's certain amounts that we could do. So just wondering if this is something we could amend, increase.
What were you thinking?
Depends what our city attorney lets us do.
Yeah. Possession of catalytic converter is 1,000.
I know,
Just
exactly.
saying.
So you would think this would be at least 1,000, just.
2,000 for fireworks, right?
Exactly.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I can get behind $1,000. How's that?
$1,000? Okay, I can go with that. I can roll with that for now. And then regarding the dumping, the illegal dumping in loitering, by the way, people dropping trash out of their cars while they're driving and stuff like that. Littering, sorry.
Littering, I was going to say the difference between loitering and littering.
Littering. Could we add that in here as well, the littering part? And could we?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if you want to make amendments on the fly. My preference would be to give me a list of things that you're interested in adding to the list, rather than me provide you with opinions off the top of my head. For example, littering out of a vehicle is probably controlled by the vehicle code, not the municipal code. So if it has something specific to do with littering versus large object dumping, et cetera, then let's take a look at that and bring it back to the city council for a fully informed discussion about it, as opposed to me sitting here and saying, hey, that sounds good.
Well, no, that's perfect. I mean, I'm just asking because,
Yeah,
that's what's
I gotcha.
triggering the next conversation. But I definitely would like to consider that in the future. The littering part, not the loitering part. The littering. And then how much is the illegal dumping, the bulky item dumping, which happens everywhere?
The past fine is currently at $100 for the first violation, proposing to go up to $250 for the first violation.
I think
That's fair.
$250.
All right, fine. I was
What do you
okay
think,
with 500.
You okay with 250?
I mean, do they have
I'm
to
thinking 5.
When I looked at it, I says.
first offense?
First offense, second
250.
offense, and what is it?
Second
Okay.
a violation within a year.
But there's only one
doubles.
offense, you only have it for one, you don't get to go up like the others.
So the question on that, that's fine. I can, $250 for a first offense. How is that going to work? Is it, you have to catch them in the act?
No, so we actually have a bulk item program right now where once we obviously recognize there's an issue at a property, we send them a notification that they're in violation, notifying them that repeat incidences where they have bulky items placed within the public right-of-way in front of their establishment, whether that's their fault or not, they're still responsible per the Bellflower Municipal Code.
Will the first one be a warning?
We have to give them notification first to
Perfect.
correct the issue. So yes, it's a warning letter. And then any subsequent issues after that then become citations.
Okay. And is it going to be based off of, let's say the second incident, is it 24 hours? Is it on the spot? Is it, what?
It would be any type of new dumping.
Okay.
So if we went out there first day, it was a red couch, and then 2 days later the couch is gone and it's a refrigerator, then that would be a second offense.
How's it gonna work with apartments or multi-unit family?
Same thing
So
applies.
it goes to the
Anything
owner?
within the immediate public right of way fronting their property, they're responsible for.
So it'll go to the owners of the
Correct.
property. Perfect. This is great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the work.
I'd like to chime in if you don't mind, Mayor. So the intent of fining is a deterrent.
Correct.
So we just made a new trash, the CR&R trash contract with the city. They're gonna have a crew of 2, 40 hours a week, unless it needs more, to go ahead and rover the city and pick that stuff up constantly. I can just, well, before you had a truck come by and pick it up. I'm just seeing a quagmire there. I don't know. Did we think of that?
Right now with our enforcement of this bulky item it's served for or earmarked for the worst property.
The worst problems.
The
So we're
worst.
going to target just the perpetual.
Yes, and we already had
I
a
can live
top
with
10
that.
list going on, and some of those have dropped off, and now we've added more to our top 10 list. So the random occurrence of just some one apartment building randomly having something out there, maybe once or twice a year, not the intent here. It's the weekly, if not daily, dumping of stuff in front of these locations is where it comes to our attention.
How many sites do we have on an annual basis?
For this?
Yeah.
This is a fairly new program.
This is
probably
a new
not,
program,
Not even
not-
quite
not-
a year,
not
a year
raising
into
it.
it.
Yeah.
Mr. Hockman was pretty
but
vital
we're already
in getting this
raising
up
it.
for it. Yeah. So I think we're probably upwards of maybe 4 to 5 citations citywide in about the 8 month of enforcement.
So not many. And those are because we see it all on all the curbs at the first of the month in front of apartments. And
correct.
And would you say that it was multiple warnings for this program since the first of the year?
Yes, we've issued at least probably 15 warning notices to various properties in town. And then of those 15, a handful have violated, which ended up in the results of the citations.
All right. I just want to, take in consideration as we're, well, I've got used to they normally come every week and pick it up. I can just see this going down, but someone's got to pay for it. I get it. So you shouldn't be putting your stuff on the curb.
Mr. Mayor, that actually, if I may jump back in, that brings up a follow-up question, actually. How will you determine between a called-in service for pickup, right? So if I call TRNR and schedule it, how are you going to be determining that versus a...
So again, Mr. Hockman, I can give him all credit for this. He worked with CRNR about 8 to 10 months ago about putting together an emailed list of all their call-outs. So every single day
you'll
at noon,
cross-reference.
I get an email from CRNR which lists all of their call-outs scheduled for that day and the next day. And so our general protocol is if they're not on that list, then they made no call.
I figured you had a solution, so I just wanted it on record.
Good.
Wonderful.
Good job.
Thank you. Oh, one more thing.
Oh, yes.
Back to that wish list for Mr. Berger. We do a really good job of cleaning graffiti. So good job, Public Works, on that. I'm taking this opportunity to bring up my concern with spotting of all the walls, where you can tell that there's been 5, 6 different graffitis removed, and there's like different, spots of paint. And can we make that something where and you can bring it back, obviously, but if we can look into, I'll rephrase my wording, if we can look into some kind of a program where we notify the landlord of, hey, it's time, to repaint your property, and if not, you'll get a fine and so forth.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, actually, we already have something that one could use right now, which is the second response program. I don't know if it's actually implemented or not, but it is on the books, which provides that the property owner, or whomever's responsible for the property, has to pay for the second response of city forces coming to that same property within a 12-month period for the same type of violation. So, for example, Brian's folks could keep track of their time. If there were deputies there, graffiti there, whatever it was, that cost can actually be recouped. So it's not technically a fine, it's actually just recouping the city's costs associated with reporting to the property.
Let
But
me elaborate
as I
on
always,
that.
my caveat always is we can adopt anything that you want to. It's a matter of enforcement and political will to do so.
Very good. So let me elaborate a little bit more on my example. I think that when we remove graffiti, we're removing it in the immediate need because it's there. At what point are we working with the property owner to remedy the solution? For example, Los Angeles Street, great remedy there, right? They put the foliage, it helped. We're not having issues there anymore. The question would be that if you look at, for example, Clark and Rose Street on the southeast corner, it's a perfect example of how many times we've painted over.
Swatches, you got different
And
color
swatches,
swatches
right.
up there, and when are you going to get the whole wall painted? One
Exactly.
even color.
And at what time
That's
does that
what you're
become the
asking.
responsibility of the landlord?
I can probably address that. So we have an existing public nuisance code within the Bellflower Municipal Code, which details for deteriorated exteriors of properties. We could more than likely articulate that that's a deterioration of the property with all the patchwork of various things, and then basically write the property owner up for that deterioration and make them bring it back to a level of where it was prior to all of that happening.
Perfect. I mean,
Yeah, I understood what you were talking about,
Yeah.
and that's fair.
it's fair, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, let me go back to the example that you used, Los Angeles and Clark. At what point did we work with the owner for them to put up the foliage? Because at some point in time, we went to the owner and said, you have to do something about this. Otherwise, my understanding is back then, we kind of threatened the owner that we're going to send you the bills of all those paint over. Unless you do something.
We encourage.
Yeah, I wouldn't say threaten the owner, but I would say we
No, we did.
We without a doubt showed them what the past costs were, and we were going to have no problem sending them that bill, and we work with them to come up with a solution at that specific location, which involved the mesh put up on the wall.
Right.
Yes.
Or paint over with a uniform paint color.
That could be
something
one
like
option
that.
as well, yes.
But they have to do something. So I think we can use that as a template, what we did on that property.
Okay.
Okay.
I move the consent calendar.
Second.
Is that all?
So where are we at now? Did we end up with $1,000 on what you asked for? Is that official? Did you guys agree with that?
With the modification.
With the modification.
That was the only change, right? Because
Yeah,
the others will
one
be-
change.
Okay.
With street racing modification, yeah.
All right, so we'll do 1,000 on that one, that went from 5 to 1,000 on modification on street racing. All right, so we got a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Dutton. Anybody support it? You did, Mr. Sanchez? And so Mr. Sanchez supported it. Poll the council, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Dutton.
Aye.
Councilmember Morse.
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Aye.
Councilmember Santinas.
Aye.
Mayor Coops.
Aye. Commission comments. Let's start with Sunny over here on the far left.
Real quick, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much. I just want to thank the Bellflower Ministerial Association for the wonderful Bellflower prayer breakfast last week. It was well attended and the program was fantastic. So thank you.
All right. All right, Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to report out that last week I attended the California Joint Powers Insurance Authority Risk Management Forum, which was held in Indian Wells between the dates of October 9th through October 11th. The forum provided an opportunity for member agencies, which includes our city, to learn about topics relevant to local government, including legal liability, workers' compensation, and public safety. It was an overall great conference, and I gotta say, at the risk of increasing the ego of our city attorney, I sat on a on a class related to indemnification and all the three major ways of doing that. And I can tell you that our city attorney makes sure that we are well taken care of. So kudos to you, Mr. Berger. So I wanted to give him kudos there. And then with that said, out of precaution, I don't recall if I reported out at the last council meeting my other two conferences that I've attended in our capacity as a board member. The California Contract Cities Association was a fall summit, was September 6th to the 8th, and I attended there as an executive board member on our behalf as our primary delegate, and that was mainly focused on the measures that are currently coming out of Sacramento and how they will impact our city and the surrounding communities. That was overall a great conference. The Sheriff Luna, was in attendance and spoke about some of the changes that are coming through the Sheriff's Department and the academies that they've put together. Hopefully, they can try to meet more of our needs in the with regards to hiring more deputies, but we'll see. Time will tell. And then lastly, I attended as the alternate delegate in official capacity to the Gateway Cities Conference on September 4th and 5th, and that was related more to, as you all are aware, is Metro and the organization of making sure that our streets like Alondra and our major corridors are well connected into the community. So they provided an overview of the Metro line and also the street and transportation, and as well as housing needs. So it was overall a good conference as well. Again, I'm just bringing those two out of precaution because I don't recall if I mentioned those at my last report out. With that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Morris, have you anything to offer?
I'd like to second what Sunny said about the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast and the State of the City and the Joint Service Club Luncheon. I thought they were all really great, and I enjoyed all three of them.
Good.
That's it.
Mr. Dutton?
You did a really good job for the State of the City, Mayor.
Not as good as Sunny. He's the best.
Well, yeah.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thanks.
All right. All right, so we're going to adjourn this meeting to the next regular meeting of Bellflower City Council at 5:30 p.m. Monday, October 28th, 2024. We're adjourned.